All right, so in this video, we're going to talk about a couple of different topics that sometimes managers have difficulty with, and that's communication and delegation. We want to talk about effective communication. So we have four different types of styles: emotive, directive, reflective, and supportive. And in order to identify what your potential style is, I want you to take a moment on this next slide. If you look on page 152 and 153 of the textbook, there's two different activities for you to complete. So at each little hashtag, you're going to look at, for example, the first word is cooperative versus competitive. So on each little each line, you're going to identify, put a check mark on each little like vertical line. And that will then tell you at the end whether you lean one way on dominance or the other, and same thing for sociability on page 153. So once you've completed the Exhibit 5 on page 152, then you'll identify if a lot of your check marks are on the left side of the center line, then you are less dominant. If you're on the right side of the center line, the majority of your check marks, then you're more on the dominant side. Versus the sociability, on the left side, you're on the lower end of sociability, and towards the right side, more on the right of center, then you're going to be more sociable. Okay, so go ahead and complete those assessments, and go ahead and hit pause on the video, complete the assessment, and then come back, because we're going to talk about those specific communication styles on the next slide. So this is a type of chart that you're going to see in a lot of different business settings. And so essentially what we're doing is we're taking two different criteria, dominance versus sociability. And whether somebody has low dominance and low sociability or high dominance and low sociability, it tells you what type of communication style you use the most. Okay? So, for example, if you have high dominance, okay, high dominance, which is right here in this line, and you have low sociability, which is right here, well, then you have more of a directive communication style, okay? You're more direct, more to the point. And then if you have low dominance and low sociability, then that means you're more of the reflective communication style. Okay, and now that just means that sometimes you have to stop and think through the process, make sure you're very methodical in your thought process before you actually make any kind of action. And so if somebody has, let's say, high sociability and low dominance, then they're more of a supportive communication style. And lastly, high sociability and high dominance ends up in a emotive communication style. So for each category, emotive, for example, those managers are going to express their opinions in a highly emotional manner. They might use really big hand gestures, really exaggerated facial expressions. They're very outspoken. And sometimes they're a little unwilling to listen to other people's points of view because they're very dominant in that nature. People who are directive, they definitely want to come out on top. They rarely admit to being wrong. They might seem cold and unfeeling. That's part of that low sociability. And then they also appear arrogant and stubbornly assertive. So somebody who is directive, it might be more of an authoritarian type of a management style of my way or the highway. Low sociability, but high dominance. The supportive manager, they want to win their approval by always agreeing with other people. They might appear insecure because they're always seeking that reassurance. And they're reluctant to take a strong stance. That's part of that low dominance influence. And lastly, the reflective managers, they avoid making decisions. They are so detail oriented. They're looking at every single tiny, minute little piece of the puzzle. It takes them a while to make a decision. And they might seem a little stiff and really formal when they're dealing with people within the department, within the organization. That's part of that low sociability. And they really don't really display a lot of emotions. And so there's not one communication style that's preferred over others. It's just really how all the whole team comes together, and understanding how your team members also receive information and how you and your communication style has an impact on influencing other people. Okay, and so the directive and emotive styles, they're for managers who really want to influence others, while the supportive and reflective styles are usually employed by managers who are less assertive and they're more cooperative. They just want to assist other people. And so again, there's not really one preferred communication style. It's just really how it works within the organization overall. Next, I want you on page 155 to complete the delegation assessment. It's 10 questions and you just answer yes or no. So go ahead and hit pause, do that assessment, and we'll come back and discuss it on the next page. All right, so were you good at delegating? Were you not good at delegating? And so as you move through the remainder of this video, I want you to think about that answer, yes or no. Were you great at delegation, or do you need some work on that? These 5 steps for delegation, the first step is thinking the project through, because it's very difficult to identify who you're going to give a specific project to if you don't know what the whole project looks like. Okay, and so you want to think the whole project through, set a basic timeline of how long you want this project to be completed. Then you're going to identify which one of your employees or your team members you think is best suited for this particular project. Then importantly, you want to meet with that employee and discuss the project with them, discuss the timeline with them, and what their role is. And so you want to make sure that they are 100% on board. You want to explain to them why they have been selected for this program and this project. And then as they move through it, then you want to monitor that progress. Does it mean that you meet once a week? Does it mean that you meet every single day at the end of your shift? What does that progress look like? And then if they need assistance, then you can provide that. So if you wait till the very end to meet with them and you didn't really monitor their progress, well, if they didn't meet their goal, well then now at this point we're like, well, what point did we get off, and what point did we not were we not successful? And so monitoring the progress along the way helps with that. Now we all have, I'm sure you've had experiences with managers who think they are excellent delegators, but in reality, they're not. And so this is a struggle, and there are some barriers to effective delegation. One is the lack of experience. And so remember, that first step is to think the whole project through from start to finish. And so if you don't have the manager doesn't have the experience to do that, well, then they're already starting off on the wrong foot. They also need to have good organizational skills. They need to be able to identify that timeline, what steps need to be done at what point. And without that great organization, then it's hard to convey that overall vision of the project to whatever team members you're delegating the work to. Sometimes our managers might think that people are going to dislike them because they're giving these extra projects, or they are giving work that the employee might perceive that's part of the manager's responsibility. And so then the employee thinks, well, I'm doing my manager's job. What is my manager doing? And so that fear of being disliked by the employee, that's why in that process, when you meet with the employee, it's really important to discuss why they've been selected for that project. What qualities do they possess, do they display that led you as the manager to trust them with accomplishing this project. Okay. If we're one of those people that just likes to do things all ourselves, we don't want to take the time to actually train people. Well, in that case, we're going to be reluctant to delegate, because if we don't think that our team members can handle the project without the proper training, then that could be a barrier to our delegation. And lastly, the failure to establish effective control. So again, we need to, kind of going back to that power, that authority we talked about in the previous video. That power is the ability to influence people within our team, within our organization. And so if we don't have that effective control over the situation by effectively using the power that we have and the authority that we have, then people, may be resistant and reluctant to take on these projects that have been delegated to them.